delighted today to be joined by Matt Hawkins, founder and CEO of Cudo, and Dominic Rumsey, VP of Hosting at the Hut Group. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Tina.
It's great to be here.
So the decentralization narrative of the last few years has moved beyond the notion of value transfer and smart contracts to things such as dedicated file storage and video rendering blockchain networks. And the ever-expanding peer-to-peer networks will no doubt have an impact on existing cloud and data center infrastructure. We're going to talk about that a little bit more with the both of you. On one hand, the distribution of billions of ever more powerful and efficient consumer devices will continue to grow. And on the other hand, large data centers will continue to gear up for the surge in demand for computer and network capacity to service the demand for AI, IoT, video on demand, 5G, etc., and a number of blockchain-based services, but just to name a few. In all cases, there's going to be a huge amount of capacity sitting redundant at any given time, which is exactly the problem that Matt and his team at Cudo are aiming to solve for companies such as the Hut Group. So, Matt, let's start with you. How did Cudo come about, and how did you enter into the market? And what were your initial products, and how many users do you have today?
Sure. I kind of come from a data center background myself. So my previous business was a data center and cloud company. I'm a backbone provider. We ended up providing about 1% of the UK's infrastructure and a global network. And when I was running that business, I just saw huge amounts of waste of IT capacity, both in consumer environments. You've got 70 to 30% spare capacity. Data center environments, they've got all this latent capacity when it's empty. And then backbone providers have got even more spare capacity. So, what I wanted to do was to build a platform that was able to make use of this spare capacity. So rather than keep building brand new data centers and new server platforms, let's make use of what's out there and come up with a much greener solution than having all this spare capacity out there.
Yeah.
So I started that company in 2017, and we put together a team to build it, to make it possible. And it's the first time really technically and market-wise that you've actually been able to build something like this and for it to work. So we focused on building a platform that can instantly make access to any computing on any device, be it Windows, Linux, Mac. And that device is then able to do things like blockchain compute, do mining, you do video rendering, AI, video streaming. So we focused on kind of three different areas. One's the gaming market, one's the mining farm market because they're high in graphics cards, and then one's the service provider and backbone provider network. And that really gives you most of the compute in the world. So
okay.
our products are applications that can be downloaded, installed on any machine, and then instantly monetizes that hardware, be it any of these different types of workflows. So, and then customers can either use it to generate revenue, or they can use it to buy computing capacity.
Fascinating, interesting.
So,
So Dom, from a large-scale hosting provider's perspective, tell us a little bit about the Hut Group. What's your typical customer, and what are the current pain points for an operation such as yours?
Yeah, sure. So the Hut Group are a e-commerce technology provider, and the part of the Hut Group that I work for, THG Hosting, we are an IT infrastructure provider. We provide kind of sort of a range of services from co-location to bare metal, and then through to managed hosting and virtual machines as well. The area of the market that we kind of sort of mainly address are those organizations that they have a compute requirement that usually they can't really take to some of the hyperscalers and some of the large public cloud providers, because either they don't deliver the performance that's required, that those applications need dedicated components, and they don't behave particularly well in virtualized environments, or because of how some of the charging models work, things like metering, data egress, and so forth. Those type of applications actually kind of sort of suit our environment quite well. We do a lot in kind of sort of fintech, adtech, gaming. But one of the challenges that we do have, Teana, as Matt has experienced in a previous life, is that there are some times of year whereby we're kind of sort of at a sellout. Maybe a gaming season is a good example, whereby we kind of sort of stretch the capacity of the infrastructure that we have to offer, and also the pretty massive network that we operate globally. And then there are other times of the year when obviously there is capacity going spare, and Cudo kind of sort of addresses that topic in a particularly interesting way.
Fascinating. So kind of like just any network grid, right? So, the power grid, for example, in Los Angeles in August is going to be at peak capacity because everybody has their air conditioner on versus, December, for example, that type of ebb and flow. That makes sense. So Matt, although this is a new product, you're clearly deeply embedded in this whole world of crypto, especially around the mining sector. So what have the earlier products taught you about both the potential and challenges of working with distributed peer-to-peer networks?
Yeah, so in the mining space, actually, we built an application. It's an intelligent application that can chop and change what the device is doing so that it's always the most profitable and always runs the best applications on that machine. Mm-hmm. But working with mining farms, we found that their management platforms and infrastructure just can't cope with that. Mm. So, we ended up building our own management platform that could automate the entire process, which means that's how you can actually then send any types of compute workloads. So rather than always just mining, if we can fill 5, 10, 20% of the time with these compute workloads, then it makes it much more profitable. And it's obviously much better use of that infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And then we've now started working with other blockchains. And one of the things that we're seeing is the cost of gas on Ethereum, for example, has gone through the roof. Other blockchains such as Algorand, which is a fantastic blockchain, but it's not Turing complete. So they're not able to run all the different compute workloads. So we're working with these blockchains to enable, and we're just about to launch a token called Kudos. And that enables us to provide layer 2 compute services across a global distributed secure network to these blockchains to enable them to provide scale and more cost efficient solutions. So we're sort of seeing gaps in the market and the challenges that they're meeting, and then applying our technology to that.
Fantastic. So Dom, outside of the industrial scale crypto mining operators, much of this hasn't really hit the radar of traditional hosting facilities. And many of these new technologies are designed to potentially obviate the need for data centers in some cases. So what does your industry need to be mindful of, and where are the new opportunities that might be created that Dom is pointing to?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's subject to the use case, right? So with us, we invest very, very heavily in things like transit and paid for peering to increase the quality of the connectivity to our infrastructure. Kind of sort of couple that with the fact that we operate to tier 3 standards within our data centers. We're very much going for a quality product, which is basically trying to increase our relevance to those markets that aren't or can't be addressed with hyperscale. And they're looking for kind of sort of resiliency, consistency, quality of IP, and really to be kind of sort of reliant on the services that they take. So yeah, for us, it's just making sure that we are as relevant as possible to those markets that we're addressing. Which so give
us an example. What are some of the sectors that are likely to be able to benefit from this the most?
Yeah, sure. I mean, a great juncture for any business is where they're going from development to production. So they might be developing within public cloud, but scaling within that environment is too costly, or it won't deliver the desired performance. So when you're going from development to production, that's a great time. Also, when markets hit certain maturities, so for example, some of the blockchain-related technology, as that kind of sort of becomes more commonplace and organizations start moving from development to production. Those types of markets really suit us very, very well, where they are looking for kind of sort of performance, quality of IP, and really kind of sort of reliability from the provider that they use to host those workloads.
Okay, so what stage of collaboration are you both at now, and what's the low-hanging fruit around scale, and what scale can this be run at today?
I think from a scale and infrastructure point of view, one of the reasons that we wanted to partner with the Hut Group is because, as Dom just said, it's the quality of their network. They've got a huge global network with very high quality tier 3 infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And for us, we've got about 20,000 nodes around the world. And what this does, the Hut Group's network gives us really high quality bandwidth networks, which is perfect for video streaming, for transcoding, for download sites, or there's many different, audio streaming, there's many different solutions. So for us, it gives us fantastic quality global infrastructure.
And it really helps from a commercial perspective when we have customers that are, maybe they are at that juncture where they're going from development to production. They're looking to invest in infrastructure. They're speaking with us, and they kind of sort of want that ability to monetize that latent infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Again, Kudos helps kind of sort of balance that out. Really, it adds a completely new commercial dynamic, really, to any provider with latent infrastructure, whether you be the end customer, whether you be the vendor and operator of that particular environment. So it's fantastic for certain markets whereby they're looking to invest, they're looking to grow into it, but they're also kind of sort of planning to grow into that infrastructure. Kind of sort of combining the two of us together, I think makes an incredibly strong commercial proposition.
Yeah, well, it sounds like in addition to monetization, there's lots of areas of opportunity to make savings as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so Matt, we've looked at the opportunities with firms, such as Dominic's. On the consumer side, can you tell us a little bit more about how the marketplace for redundant computing capacity will work? And what are the most obvious and ideal devices that could benefit from this?
Yeah, okay. So if I explain the devices first, then the devices what that we're focusing on first are high-end compute devices, but these can be games PCs. So a games PC with a good graphics cards and a processor is absolutely perfect, but it's only available kind of 30 to 60% of the time. Mm-hmm. Mining farm infrastructure is high-end GPUs, so it's ideal for scale. And then the data center environments and infrastructures are great for high-end CPU, very high-quality SLAs where you need always-on infrastructure. And then a lot of bandwidth, high quality bandwidth. So that's kind of on the supply side. And then on the demand side, which is, we've built kind of an Airbnb for cloud computing, and we're connecting the supply and demand, which is the marketplace. On the demand side, we're working with video rendering companies, AI companies, computer-aided engineering, where they're doing fluid dynamics, streaming for bandwidth, and it kind of, we're working with the large buyers of compute. So for them, it's saving them anything up to about 10 times cost savings than they're having to pay for the hyperscalers at the moment. But actually the only option for them right now is the hyperscalers, because if you've got a project or a business and you need 10,000 servers, you can only go to the hyperscalers for that. Whereas using our network, you can go to 20 different service providers, and we distribute it out so all these service providers can actually compete for the first time.
And what's on your roadmap over the next 12 months? What should we be on the lookout for?
So what we're doing, so at the moment, all of our management platforms and software that runs on the end clients, that's all available publicly. The actual connecting the supply and buying compute at the moment is privately available. So over the next 2 quarters, that we're going to make that publicly available. And then also, actually, we're just launching our tokens so that we can use our network to provide compute oracle services to other blockchains like Algorand and Ethereum, to make it much more cost effective. But also it means that these blockchains that are quite often tied to what you can do on them, all of a sudden you connect to outside APIs and data services. We're partnering with a lot of other blockchains to enable them to expand their networks. So it's kind of on the expansion of compute and on the expansion of blockchain.
Fantastic. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for joining us today. This is a really interesting topic, and one that we don't typically cover on the infrastructure side. So it's really exciting to see how you guys are addressing the ever-growing technology needs that the way that we're working and transacting today is generating. Thank you both so much.
Thanks, Teana.
Thanks, Teana.